Welcome to the second month of the Memento Mori Book to Film Club, a club where every month we read a book and then we watch a film adaptation of that book and then come back here on the last Thursday of every month to talk about it, okay? The choice for July was Children of Men, The Children of Men, the novel by P.D. James, adapted by Alfonso Cuarón in 2006. The Children of Men by P.D. James, published in 1992. James, who was primarily focused on detective crime fiction, took a detour when writing The Children of Men, it being a future dystopian layered with social, political, and theological themes. The book takes place in the UK in the year 2021, where worldwide population is rapidly declining as mass infertility has stricken the human race. No child has been born for over 25 years, resulting in a civilization without children, a society that has largely shifted their focus onto the end of the human race. The book follows Theo Ferran, a professor at Oxford who gets mixed up with a group of dissidents who call themselves the Five Fishes, a rebel group that reaches out to Theo because of his connection to his cousin Zan. Zan is the warden of England who has rid Britain of its democracy, turning it into a dictatorship, a police state focused on maintaining the complacent pleasures of the English citizens through strict immigration laws, government-assisted suicides, and stern capital punishment. Theo's involvement with the group deepens as he learns that one of the members of the group is pregnant, resulting in a cat-and-mouse chase between the rebels and Zan and his council. The film was adapted in 2006 by Mexican film auteur Alfonso Cuarón. While the main premise of dystopian mass infertility remains the driving force of the story, Cuarón takes great liberties with the source material. The main character of Theo, played by Clive Owen, carries very little resemblance to the Theo of P.D. James's novel. The movie places an extra emphasis on the themes of immigrations and refugees, as England is turned into the last standing sanctuary within a dying world at war. The role of the childbearer is also changed to that of a young refugee played by Claire Hope Ashity, the bulk of the movie focusing on her and Theo's escape from the rebel fish group who plan to use the incoming birth as a tool in their own aspiring revolution against the British government. The movie contains incredible visuals, well-done special effects, beautiful cinematography, and is often noted for its long tracking shots that heighten the thrilling tension of the screenplay.
We have to meet the boat.
What is this boat?
The Human Project have sent a boat.
The Human Project?
It's the greatest minds in the world working for a new society.
Your baby is the miracle the whole world has been waiting for.
We will find a way to get you to the Human Project, I promise you.
We're almost there, Keith. We're almost there.
No, it's really interesting because last month with The Night of the Hunter, so much of the discussion revolved around the fact that the film was so similar to the novel that it was often hard to differentiate the two. And it's interesting going into Children of Men, where you have a film that is just so drastically different than its source material. And a good example still of a successful adaptation. Again, it's not about picking, adapting the book page by page. That's not what makes a successful film adaptation. And I think Children of Men is a great example of that. This was my first time reading the novel, a rewatch of the film. I enjoyed both. I definitely think both have problems, but overall I think both were really great. You know, I could spend all day going over the differences between the book and the film, but instead I thought I would give you the top three things that I think the novel does better over the film, and then the top three things that I think the film does better over the novel. So first off, with the book, I think the number one thing that the book does better is the world building. And granted, it has a leg up because, it's a novel and it has a lot more time to dive into this world. But just the imagination of P.D. James and all the layering she explores of this, world without children was just so thought-provoking and so much fun to read. Diving into all these different questions. What does the average person do when they have no legacy to leave behind? How does, mass infertility affect sex life? What does the last generation, the Omega generation as they're called here, how do they act and what do they look like? So many levels, all the way down to the small stuff, with stuff like people's relationship with animals. Certain people resenting animals because they can still breed, while other people parade them around like saints. The stuff with the dolls, how, the toy industry, of course, has faded away, but the one faction of it that has remained going is the doll makers, because, people are carrying around dolls as if they were children. Stuff like that is such a joy to read. And certainly Alfonso Cuarón tries to fit as much as that into the film as possible, but he only has so much time. And I definitely think that was the main attraction of the novel over the film. The second thing that I think the novel does better is the antagonist. Zan, Theo's cousin, the Warden of England, I think just presents a much more compelling sort of villain for the story. In the film, that role is kind of sloppily transferred to the character of Luke, which is a member of the Fish Rebellion, kind of a member gone rogue within it, who hopes to use the birth of the child, for his own political gain. And I just think the character of Zan and that whole dynamic was much more interesting within the novel. I also loved he has this council of characters who we spend very little time with in the novel, but they left a huge impression. I would have loved to spend more time with them. And yeah, even though I don't know if I was completely satisfied with Zan's story within the book, I do think it was more interesting than what the movie presented. And then finally with the book, the backstory of Theo. Of course, so much was changed about the character of Theo within the film. But one of the biggest things that I don't think needed to be changed was the backstory on his child's death. In the film, we learn that Theo's child died of the flu during a huge epidemic. And of course, in the novel, it's Theo himself who kills his child accidentally when he runs over him. And that's a big difference. And I think it creates a much better character arc within the book, where you have him, coming from a place of having killed his child to kind of ushering in, the second coming of man. I think it's a much more complete arc. And I think, frankly, P.D. James had balls to present her main character, as someone who killed their child, even though it was accidentally. And I think Cuarón should have carried that into the film. And then three things that I think the film did better over the novel. Again, the first, kind of an unfair advantage to the visual medium of film. But of course, the suspense and the action and the thrilling aspect of the story is much more compelling within the film. To me, the second half of P.D. James's novel was pretty lackluster, which was what Cuarón mostly took from that second part, and I think he really elevated it. Again, I think James's strength was her world building and all the story within the first half of the book. And I felt the second half was a bit of a letdown. And of course, with Cuarón, he just presents it visually in just such a compelling way. There's just so many amazing sequences within the film. The whole chase between the mob and these people in the car, the escape from this rebel farm, and then finally, of course, that whole long sequence at the end with Theo and Key working their way through this kind of war-torn refugee town. So definitely the action and the thrilling aspect was better within the film. Secondly, better within the film, I thought, was the focus on kind of the immigration and refugee side of the story. And that's an aspect that's definitely present within the novel, but it's kind of packaged within a bunch of other kind of, political hot topics, where you have that, you have, the government-assisted suicide, you have capital punishment, you have this selective testing for fertility. It was kind of combined with a lot of stuff. So I think it was very smart for Cuarón to kind of cut the rest of that out. At least mostly. He touches on those other things a little bit throughout the film. But to mostly focus on the refugee and legal immigration situation, which of course was a big topic in 2006, and it's a big topic today. And of course, those images of illegal immigrants locked up in chain-linked, cages at checkpoints throughout London is a very relatable image to what we're seeing today, here in America and beyond. And then the third thing that I thought was better within the film was the decision to change who the mother was, changing it from the character of Julian to this young black refugee girl. Was such a smart decision. It created a much more interesting dynamic, between her and Theo. And I think it just made more sense within the commentary of the film. I love the actress who played Key. And I just think it was a much more interesting choice compared to the book with the character of Julian, who I thought was just kind of, boring. So yeah, and again, there's so many other differences between the book and film. I enjoyed both. I think both have their problems. Again, with the book, I think the second half was a little slow, and I don't think it wrapped up as well as it could have. And then with the film, I do think, no matter how visually stunning it is, I think the world building was a little weak, and the character development maybe not as strong. So definitely both the book and the films had their problems, but overall I really enjoy both. So the big question, book or film, which is better? I enjoyed both. I thought both the book and the film were good. I certainly think each had their own faults, but in the end, I do think the film is better. I think if the second half of the novel had lived up to the incredible build-up, I would have said the book. But I do think the film is more consistent. I think Cuarón, even though there was a lot of stuff within the book I would have enjoyed seeing, I think he was very smart with the angle in which he approached the material, while still staying true to P.D. James's world and the messages that she presented within the novel. Once again, I want to say a huge thank you to everybody who continues to participate in the Book to Film Club. Whether you read the book or watched the film or both, thank you for joining in with me. It's been a lot of fun, and I'm really looking forward to continuing the conversation down below in the comments, because especially compared to last month, I think this book and film have a lot more kind of moving parts. And again, the film is so drastically different from the source material that I can see each kind of, attracting a much more diverse opinion. So I look forward to talking more about it with you below. And please join me next month in August when we're diving into Lord of the Flies. Okay, thank you for watching. I'll talk to you next time. Bye.